Now we've come to the empty planet, or should I say the Clyde and Ronnie shipper story. I'll get to that later. The whole Earth is empty. There's no one around, not a single person in sight. Even Sarah Jane and Mr. Smith have vanished. Clyde and Ronnie are apparently the only survivors of the human race. A deserted London holds terrors of its own, mainly in the form of two mysterious, menacing robots and some other kid. Just the entire scenario is impressive. The entire planet is empty. No adults, no children, no babies, nothing. I guess one way to describe this scenario is it's like being in a horror film. But if done right, I thought that this could have been one of those long, complicated, boring storylines, kind of like a Shyamalan film, but thankfully it isn't. I mentioned this before in one of my other reviews that I like how a companion is put into a situation and see how they would overcome these situations. In this case, the stakes are high. Imagine if you were left alone on this planet. But unless you knew a time-traveling person or a Time Lord, you would try to sort it out from all the things that you've learned. And that's what Clyde and Ronnie have done. Again, like with Maria, it has Clyde and Ronnie see how they can get out of the situation without Sarah Jane and without Luke. And they do that just by doing what Sarah Jane would. Again, seeing how much of an impact Sarah Jane, or in some cases the Doctor, has left to these kids. And it does leave them asking questions on what would have happened if they didn't meet Sarah Jane. I actually like how they present the Earth going empty, having a shot of the entire planet with loud sounds of telephones, cars, televisions, engines, and so much more, covering the entire scene until all of a sudden it stops. That is freaky. And when we find out exactly why these two have been left behind, is just genius. And let's just say, a nice bit of continuity. I love the design of these robots. They don't have a name, they're just called robots. Very sci-fi, very mechanic, and very disturbing at the same time. I like how they've painted them in yellow and red, as if one of them is a drone while the other is probably the leader. Sure, they look like Sontarans mixed with a bionicle toy, but they're still pretty cool. Any scene with them searching for Clyde and Ronnie is just breathtaking. Even their marching sound gives me the shivers. I would like to see these costumes appear in an exhibition so that I can get a closer look. Minor nitpick though, I do wish they didn't talk. I think it would have been a lot more funny for Clyde and Ronnie to try and communicate with the robots until the final resolution. I think it would have been nice if they were like the Tritophores in Planet of the Dead, in which the TARDIS Matrix is not around, so the monsters would only speak in their own language, so therefore, without the Matrix around, they can't translate the language. That would have been nice. But still, other than that, they were still pretty cool to watch. There's this one character called Gavin, who was also left behind. I think we all knew he had something to do with it. I even guessed it when I saw his image in the Doctor Who Adventures magazine. But how they revealed him was actually okay. But in general, Gavin is actually pretty good. Even though he's a bland one-note character, the actor who plays him gives it his best shot. But I would say that the final reveal and the climax, I think, maybe was a little too rushed. But let's be honest, the real reason this episode is great is the relationship between Clyde and Ronnie. This episode strengthens their personal connection, hinting a possible romantic connection, which I think was meant to be concluded in Series 5. But more on that in a future video. I should really call this episode the shipper story, because this is clearly an episode to get Clyde and Ronnie together. And I love it. I really do ship Clyde and Ronnie together. I think for me the highlights of the episode are the cafe scenes. It's like watching the barnyard scene in Avengers or Logan. Just a nice location during a troubled situation. And it does contain more character-driven moments. I can see how some kids might not like this episode much due to the long, boring first half, not much action, but I'd say it's a good way to introduce kids the idea and feeling about being left alone. But still, there is some good chases and visual moments in part 2 to look forward to. But obviously, the main focus of the episode is the relationship between Clyde and Ronnie, and it's really cute. I love seeing these two together, and this is one of those episodes that proves it. And dare I say, it actually makes a pretty cool scientific mystery story. The cinematography and direction is great. The writing for our main characters is good. The design, layout and visuals are very creative. So I guess I could say if you're a kid, and if you can get through the boring, character-driven stuff and skip to the action, you'll like this episode fine. But I guess if you're someone who likes a good character-driven sci-fi mystery story, then this is definitely one for you to check out.